"It's a fake," Patricia announced, loudly holding my black titanium Centurion card up like a piece of evidence ensuring the entire first-class cabin could witness my humiliation. Across the aisle, the man in the beige suit was already filming, eager to see the thug in the hoodie dragged away in handcuffs. I tightened my arm around my sleeping 4-year-old daughter, feeling the eyes of every passenger burning into us. They saw a criminal. They didn't know that the fake card had a limit high enough to buy this aircraft. And they certainly didn't know that I wasn't texting a lawyer, I was texting their CEO to ground this plane and end their careers before we even touched the ground. The sliding glass doors of JFK Terminal 4 hissed open, letting in a gust of humid July air that smelled of jet fuel and asphalt. Tyrell James adjusted the collar of his charcoal hoodie, shifting the weight of his sleeping 4-year-old daughter, Chloe, on his shoulder. At 34, Tyrell had the build of a linebacker, broad shoulders, 6'3", but his eyes were tired-rimmed with the exhaustion of a 3-week international business tour that had taken him from Tokyo to Berlin and finally back to the States. He wasn't dressed like the men who usually walk toward the Sovereign Air first-class check-in. He wore distressed denim limited edition sneakers that cost more than a mid-sized sedan and that unassuming hoodie. To the untrained eye, he looked like a guy who might be hoping for a standby seat in economy. To the trained eye, the vintage P.C. Philippe watch peeking out from his sleeve whispered a different tax bracket. But Gregory Halloway, the man standing in front of him in the priority queue, did not have a trained eye. He had a wandering eye, and it was currently wandering back toward Trell with a sneer of undisguised irritation. Gregory was the picture of corporate impatience, a beige suit that was slightly too tight to comb over, fighting a losing battle against gravity, and a platinum status tag on his luggage that he made sure was visible to everyone. He tapped his foot, checking his Rolex every 15 seconds. "Excuse me," Gregory said, turning around fully. His voice was nasally, the kind that carried across a quiet room like a scratching chalkboard. "The economy drop-off is down at the other end. You're blocking the premier access." Tyrell didn't break stride. He adjusted Chloe, whose braids were tickling his neck. "I know where I am, thanks." Gregory scoffed a short, sharp sound. "This line is for first-class and Diamond Medallion members only. They're very strict about it today. I'd hate for you to wait 20 minutes just to be sent to the back of the bus." "I appreciate the concern," Tyrell said, his voice a low, calm baritone, "but I think we'll be fine." Tyrell stepped around Gregory's sprawling luggage cart and approached the counter. The agent, a young woman named Sarah, with kind eyes, looked up. She saw the tired father and the sleeping child. She didn't see a threat. She saw a dad. "Good morning, sir. Traveling with a little one today?" Sarah whispered, trying not to wake Chloe. "Yeah, she's wiped out." Tyre smiled softly, handing over his passport and a sleek black titanium card. "Just one bag to check. The rest is carry-on." Behind them, Gregory was fuming. He leaned over the retractable barrier, his face flushing pink. "I was in line. Why is he being served? He clearly—" "Mr. Halloway, please wait your turn," Sarah said firmly, not breaking eye contact with Tyrell. She scanned the passport. Her eyes widened slightly as the screen populated. She looked from the screen to Tyrell, and her posture straightened instantly. It wasn't fear. It was recognition, or perhaps reverence. "Mr. James," she said, her voice dropping an octave, professional and harsh. "I didn't realize. Welcome back to New York. We have your suite ready on Flight 402 to Los Angeles. Would you like a cart to the gate?" "No cart, Sarah. Just want to get her on the plane and asleep," Tyrell said. "Of course. I've marked your luggage as priority 1. You have access to the private flagship lounge if you have time. Just the gate today. Thank you." As Tyrell took his boarding pass and walked away, he passed Gregory again. The man in the beige suit was staring, mouth slightly agape, looking between Tyrell's retreating back and the agent. "What do you mean, Mr. James?" Gregory snapped at Sarah as he slammed his own passport down. "Who is that, a rapper? Some basketball player?" Sarah looked at Gregory with a cool, detached customer service smile. "Mr. Holloway, I need your confirmation number, and I would suggest lowering your voice." Terrell heard the commotion fading behind him, but he didn't look back. He was used to it. The assumptions, the helpful directions to the economy line. He had made his fortune in biometric security software. James Systems was a name known in Silicon Valley boardrooms and Pentagon briefings, but his face wasn't on cereal boxes. He liked it that way. Anonymity was a luxury. Money usually couldn't buy, but Tyrell had managed to purchase a slice of it. However, as he walked toward gate B14, he felt a prickle on the back of his neck. It was a feeling he hadn't had in years. The feeling of a storm gathering. He reached the gate. The pre-boarding area was crowded. He found a quiet corner near the window, sitting Chloe down on his lap. She stirred, rubbing her eyes. "Are we home, Daddy?" she mumbled. "Not yet, baby. One more nap, then we're home." Tyre kissed her forehead. The gate agent picked up the microphone. "We are now inviting our first-class passengers and active military to board Flight 402 to Los Angeles." Terrell stood up. He gathered his leather weekender bag and Chloe's small pink backpack. He moved toward the jet bridge. That was when he saw him again. Gregory Holloway was rushing toward the gate breathless and red-faced, and he wasn't alone in his judgment anymore. Standing at the entrance to the jet bridge was the lead flight attendant, a woman named Patricia. She had stiff blonde hair, a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and a clipboard she wielded like a shield. Gregory reached the gate lane right as Tyrell was scanning his pass. "Unbelievable," Gregory muttered loud enough for Patricia to hear. "They let anyone into Group 1 these days." Patricia looked up. Her eyes swept over Tyrell, the hoodie, the sneakers, the sleeping child. Then she looked at Gregory, the suit, the platinum tag. She made a choice. "Sir," Patricia said, stepping in front of Tyrell, blocking the path to the plane. Her hand was raised palm out. "Please step aside. We need to clear the first-class cabin first." Tyrell paused, blinking. He held up his boarding pass. It clearly said 1A. "I am first class, seat 1A." Patricia didn't even look at the pass. She looked at his face. "Sir, I need you to wait until your group is called. This is priority boarding." "My group was called Terrell," said his voice tightening. "I have a ticket for 1A. There must be a mistake with the scanner," Patricia said dismissively. She gestured to Gregory. "Mr. Holloway, please go right ahead. Sorry for the hold-up." Gregory smirked, a greasy, satisfied expression, and brushed past Tyrell his shoulder, checking Tyrell's arm. "Some people just don't know their place," Gregory whispered as he passed. Tyrell took a deep breath. The anger flared in his chest, hot and sharp, but he looked down at Chloe. She was watching him wide-eyed. He couldn't make a scene, not yet. "Check the pass," Terrell said to Patricia, thrusting the paper forward. "Scan it." Patricia sighed, a dramatic exhalation of suffering. She snatched the pass from his hand and held it under the scanner. Beep, beep, green light. The screen flashed. James/Terrell, seat 1A, status invitation only. Patricia stared at the screen. She blinked. She looked at the machine, tapped it with a manicured nail, and then looked back at Tyrell. There was no apology in her eyes, only confusion and a hint of suspicion. "Fine," she clipped. "Go ahead, but you'll need to store that carry-on in the overhead immediately. We don't have room for excessive baggage in the cabin. It fits under the seat," Tyrell said, taking his pass back. "I said overhead," Patricia snapped. "Move along. You're holding up the line." Tyrell walked down the jet bridge, the metal tunnel vibrating under his feet. He knew this game. He had played it his whole life. But today, with the exhaustion of the trip and his daughter in his arms, the rules felt heavier than usual. He didn't know that Gregory Holloway and Patricia had just started a game they had absolutely no chance of winning. The cabin of the Sovereign Air Boeing 777 was a sanctuary of beige leather and walnut trim. Seat 1A was a suite fully enclosed with a sliding door, a lie flat bed, and a personal entertainment screen the size of a desktop monitor. Tyrell settled Chloe into the large leather armchair. She immediately curled up with her blanket, the ambient noise of the plane lulling her back to sleep. Tyre sat in the adjacent seat, 1B. He had bought both to ensure privacy, and exhaled. He took off his hoodie, revealing a plain black t-shirt underneath. He stretched his legs, closing his eyes for a moment. "Sir." The voice was sharp. Tyrell opened his eyes. Patricia was standing over him. She wasn't offering a pre-departure beverage. She wasn't offering a hot towel. She was holding a manifest, and her lips were pursed so tightly they had almost disappeared. "Yes," Tyrell asked. "I need to see your boarding pass again," she said. "I showed it to you at the gate," Trell said, keeping his voice level. There was a glitch in the system, Patricia lied. The tremor in her voice gave it away. She was fishing. "I need to verify that you are actually seated in 1A and 1B. These seats were reserved for a VIP booking." "I am the booking," Tyrell said, reaching into his pocket and producing the stub. Patricia took it, examining it like it was a counterfeit bill. She held it up to the light. She checked the date. She checked the flight number. From across the aisle in seat 2, Gregory Holloway was watching over the top of his Wall Street Journal. He had a gin and tonic in his hand and a look of malicious glee on his face. "Everything all right, Patricia?" Gregory called out. "If there's a double booking, I'm sure the gentleman would be more comfortable in economy, plus more legroom for his type of luggage." Patricia offered Gregory a tight conspiratorial smile. "Just doing a standard verification, Mr. Holloway. Safety first." She turned back to Tyrell. "Do you have a secondary form of IDA, driver's license, passport?" Tyrell sat up straighter. The cabin had gone quiet. Other passengers, a tech couple in row 3, an older woman in 2B, were watching. The air felt thick. "Is this standard procedure for everyone?" Tyrell asked, gesturing to Gregory. "Did you ask him for his ID after he sat down?" "Mr. Holloway is a frequent flyer with Sovereign," Patricia said defensively. "We know him." "And you don't know me," Tyrell stated. "I need the ID, sir, or I will have to ask you to deplane." Tyrell stared at her. He could feel the pulse in his temple. He could refuse. He could make a scene. He could scream. But that's what they wanted. They wanted the angry black man. They wanted the justification to drag him off. Slowly, deliberately, Tyrell reached into his bag. He pulled out his passport, the blue American one, not the diplomatic one he carried for specific government contracts, and handed it to her. Patricia opened it. She looked at the picture. She looked at Tyrell. She looked at the name. Tyrell David James. It meant nothing to her. She handed it back. "Thank you," she said, her tone devoid of gratitude. "Please keep your voice down during the flight. We have high-value clients trying to rest." She walked away, the heels of her shoes clicking aggressively on the floor. Tyre clenched his jaw so hard his teeth ached. He looked at Chloe. She was still asleep, thank God. He put his headphones on, not playing any music, just activating the noise cancellation to drown out the world. The plane pushed back. The safety video played. They taxied and took off the engines, roaring as they climbed over the gray skyline of New York. Once the seatbelt sign pinged off, Tyrell reclined his seat slightly. He opened his laptop. He had work to do. A merger was pending between his company and a European cybersecurity firm. The deal was worth $4.2 billion. He was deep into a spreadsheet when he felt a tap on his shoulder. It wasn't Patricia this time. It was a male flight attendant, younger, looking nervous. He was holding a credit card terminal. "Sir, I'm sorry to disturb you," the young man said. "What is it?" Tyr asked, taking off his headphones. "The purser, Patricia. She says the card you used to book the flight has been flagged." Tyrell frowned. Flagged for what potential fraud?" the attendant whispered, looking mortified. "She says because the tickets were purchased only 4 hours ago for a same-day international connection, the system flagged it as high risk." She needs to see the physical credit card used to purchase the tickets to verify the last 4 digits. Terrell looked across the aisle. Gregory was openly staring now, no longer pretending to read. He was grinning. "You've got to be kidding me," Terrell said. "I'm really sorry, sir," the young man said. She said, "If we can't verify the card, we have to treat the ticket as unpaid." "And what does that mean?" "It means, well, usually it means we have to divert or have police meet the plane upon landing." Terrell closed his laptop. The click sounded like a gunshot in the quiet cabin. "She thinks I stole the credit card," Terrell said flatly. "I didn't say that, sir. You didn't have to." Terrell reached for his wallet. He pulled out the black titanium card, the Centurion card from American Express. The black card. It was heavy cool to the touch. He held it out. The young man took it. He looked at the name. He looked at the card. He looked terrified. He knew what this card meant. You didn't steal a card like this. You couldn't use it if you didn't own the heavy metal it was stamped on. "Go show it to her," Terrell said, "and tell her to run it for a bottle of water, just so she can see the transaction clear." The young man nodded and hurried to the galley. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Tyrell waited. He saw the curtain twitch. Patricia and the young man were arguing in hushed tones. Then Patricia marched out. She didn't look chastened. She looked furious. She marched right up to Tyrell's seat. "This card was declined for the water," she announced loudly. "That's impossible," Tyrell said. "It's a fake," Patricia declared, her voice ringing through the first-class cabin. "We see these fake metal cards all the time online. You bought a prop card to look important, didn't you, excuse me?" Terrell stood up. He towered over her. "Sit down, sir," Patricia shouted, backing away. "You are becoming aggressive. I am ordering you to sit down," Gregory chimed in from across the aisle. "He's got a fake card. I knew it. Probably stolen identity. You need to restrain him." "Patricia, I am not aggressive," Tyrell said, his voice deadly calm. "And that card is not fake. If it declined, it's because your machine is broken or you don't know how to operate it." "I have been a flight attendant for 20 years, Patricia yelled. "I know a scam artist when I see one. You and your daughter are scamming a free ride." At the mention of his daughter, Tyrell's eyes went cold. Ice cold. "Do not bring my daughter into this." "I'm contacting the captain," Patricia spat. "We are going to have the authorities of Tinland meet us in Los Angeles, and don't expect to be walking off this plane. You'll be dragged off." She spun on her heel and stormed toward the cockpit. Terrell sat back down. His hands were shaking, not from fear but from the adrenaline of pure, unadulterated rage. He looked at the black card sitting on his tray table. It wasn't declined. He knew that he had a limit that could buy the aircraft they were sitting in. He picked up his phone. He connected to the onboard Wi-Fi. He didn't call his lawyer. He didn't call customer service. He opened his contacts and scrolled to a name he hadn't used in 2 years. A name saved simply as Richard CEO Sovereign. Richard Sterling, the CEO of Sovereign Air. They played golf at the same club in Augusta. Tyrell had consulted for Sovereign's digital security infrastructure 3 years ago. Tyrell hit the call button on the Wi-Fi calling app. It rang once, twice. Tyrell, a voice answered, sounding surprised. "To what do I owe the pleasure? I thought you were in Europe." "I'm on Flight 42, Richard Terrell said, his voice void of emotion. "Currently somewhere over Ohio." "Oh, flying with us. Fantastic. How's the service?" Richard Terrell said, "I need you to listen to me very carefully because in about 10 minutes I'm going to buy a significant amount of put options on your stock and then I'm going to go to the press." "Whoa, whoa." Richard's voice shifted instantly from friendly to panicked. "Tyrell, what's going on?" "Your lead flight attendant, Patricia, has accused me of stealing my seat. She has accused me of credit card fraud. She has publicly humiliated me and my 4-year-old daughter. And now she has gone to the cockpit to call the police, to have me arrested upon landing." There was a silence on the other end of the line. A heavy, pregnant silence. She did what Richard whispered. She says my Centurion card is a fake prop. She says I don't belong here. Tyrell. I'm looking up the crew manifest right now. Patricia Evans. Okay, Tyrell, I am so sorry. I will call the gate in LA and have this sorted. No, Richard, that's not good enough. What do you want me to do? Tyrell looked at the cockpit door. He looked at Gregory Holloway, who was now filming Tyrell with his smartphone, narrating a story about criminals in first class. I want the plane turned around, Tyrell said. What I want you to call the pilot right now. Tell him to divert the flight, land the plane. I want off. I am not spending another 4 hours in this metal tube with these people. Tyrell, I can't ground a commercial flight. The cost, the logistics. I don't care about the cost, Richard. Send me the bill. I'll pay for the fuel. I'll pay for the delay fees. I'll pay for every passenger's refund. But if this plane doesn't land in the next 30 minutes, I am going to make it my life's mission to ensure Sovereign Air becomes a case study in bankruptcy. Tyrell paused. Do we have a deal? Captain Michael Anderson. A veteran pilot with 30 years of commercial flight experience stared at the ACRS message blinking on his flight management computer. The text was short-coded in high-priority red, a color usually reserved for bomb threats, hijackings, or catastrophic mechanical failure. But the code wasn't for a bomb. It was a Code 77 Alpha Direct Executive Order. He adjusted his headset, looking over at his co-pilot, a young man named David, who looked equally bewildered. Did you read that right? David asked, his voice cracking slightly. Immediate diversion. Executive override. I'm reading it, Anderson muttered. It's coming straight from the Operations Center. Authorization Richard Sterling, CEO. Anderson grabbed the radio handset. Ops, this is Sovereign 402. We are cruising at 34,000 feet. We are requesting confirmation on the diversion order. We have no mechanical issues, no medical emergencies. The voice that crackled back wasn't the usual dispatcher. It was the director of flight operations. Captain Anderson, the order stands. You are to divert immediately to Philadelphia International. You are to prioritize a rapid descent. Law enforcement and corporate security will meet the aircraft at the gate. Do not, I repeat, do not communicate the specifics to the cabin crew yet. Just get the bird on the ground. Understood, Anderson said, though he understood nothing. He switched the frequency. Center Sovereign 402 requesting immediate vector to PHL, priority handling. Back in the cabin, the atmosphere was poisonous. Patricia had returned from the cockpit before the call came in, smug and satisfied. She had already announced to Gregory and the surrounding passengers that the situation was being handled and that the disruptive individual would be removed upon landing in Los Angeles. Gregory Holloway was reeing in the drama. He had ordered another gin and tonic and was currently leaning over the aisle, speaking loudly to the elderly woman in 2B. It's a shame, really. Gregory pontificated, gesturing vaguely toward Tyrell's seat. You pay a premium for first class to escape the riffraff, and then the airline just lets anyone upgrade with a stolen credit card. It ruins the exclusivity. The woman nodded nervously, clutching her purse. Is he dangerous? Oh, absolutely, Gregory whispered loud enough for Tyrell to hear. Fraudsters usually are. Desperate people do desperate things. Tyrell sat in silence. He hadn't moved. He hadn't engaged. He was watching the flight map on his monitor. The little white plane icon was currently over Pennsylvania. Suddenly, the plane banked. It wasn't a gentle correction. It was a hard, aggressive bank to the left. The engines throttled back, the pitch of the whine dropping from a steady hum to a low growl as the aircraft began to descend. The cabin murmured. Passengers looked out the windows. The sun was still high. They shouldn't be landing for another 4 hours. Patricia frowned. She stood up, nearly losing her balance as the plane leveled out at a lower altitude. She grabbed the interphone to call the cockpit. Captain, this is the cabin. We felt a turn. Is everything all right? Prepare the cabin for immediate arrival. Captain Anderson's voice was Tur. We are diverting to Philadelphia. Philadelphia? Patricia repeated, her voice echoing in the quiet galley. Medical emergency. Security issue, Anderson said. We've been ordered to put down. Gate arrival in 20 minutes. Patricia hung up the phone, her eyes wide. A slow, predatory smile spread across her face. She smoothed her skirt and walked into the aisle. She stopped right next to Tyrell's seat. She didn't look at him. She looked at Gregory. Ladies and gentlemen, Patricia announced, her voice trembling with excitement disguised as professional concern. We have been ordered by the captain to divert the flight to Philadelphia due to a security breach involving a passenger on board. We ask that you remain seated. She let the implication hang there. Every head in first class turned to look at Tyrell. Gregory clapped his hands once. There it is. They aren't waiting for L.A. They're dumping him now. Good riddance. Tyrell looked up at Patricia. You think this is for me? I know it is. Patricia sneered, dropping the customer service facade entirely. The captain obviously checked your bogus credentials and realized we have a criminal on board. You're going to jail, sir, and I'm going to personally make sure the police know you threatened me. I never threatened you, Tyrell said calmly. You threatened my job, Patricia retorted. And in my book, that's a threat. I hope you have a lawyer. Tyrell looked at Chloe. She had woken up during the bank, her eyes wide and fearful. Daddy, why is the plane going down? She whimpered. Tyrell reached out and stroked her hair. It's okay, baby. Daddy just decided we needed to stop early. Everything is fine, I promise. Don't lie to the child, Gregory barked. She needs to know actions have consequences. Tyrell turned his head slowly toward Gregory. The look on his face was no longer just annoyance. It was the look of a man who had already pressed the button to launch the missile and was just watching it fly. Mr. Holloway, Tyrell said softly, I suggest you enjoy these last few minutes of your flight. I have a feeling your travel plans are about to change. Significantly. My plans. Gregory laughed, a harsh barking sound. I'm a Diamond Medallion member. I'm not going anywhere except to my meeting in L.A. You, my friend, are going to a holding cell. The plane descended through the clouds. The fastened seatbelt sign chimed repeatedly. The landing gear deployed with a heavy mechanical thud that shook the floorboards. As the ground rushed up to meet them, Patricia sat in her jump seat staring at Tyrell with a look of absolute triumph. She had won. She had protected her cabin. She had identified the intruder. She was a hero. The wheels touched down on the tarmac of Philadelphia International with a screech of burning rubber. The reverse thrusters roared. The plane slowed, taxiing off the runway much faster than usual. Instead of going to a regular terminal gate, the plane turned toward a secluded section of the tarmac usually reserved for private jets and diplomatic arrivals. Oh, wow, Gregory whispered, pressing his face to the window. Look at that. Police cars, 3 of them. And is that a black SUV? They really rolled out the red carpet for your arrest, pal. Tyrell looked out the window. He saw the flashing blue lights. He saw the black Escalade with the tinted windows. He recognized the man standing next to the SUV. It wasn't a police officer. It was Marcus Thorne, the East Coast Director of Operations for Sovereign Air, and next to him was a man in a dark suit. Tyre knew very well his own personal attorney, David Sterling, no relation to the CEO, who happened to be based in Philly and whom Tyrell had texted 10 minutes ago. The plane came to a halt. The engines winded down. Remain seated, Patricia shouted, leaping up before the light even turned off. Nobody move! Authorities are boarding! She rushed to the cabin door, eager to open it, eager to point the finger. She was ready for her moment. She had no idea she was opening the door to her own execution. The cabin door disarmed with a hiss and swung open. The humid Pennsylvania air rushed in, clashing with the recycled chill of the cabin. Patricia stood at the door, her posture rigid, her face set in a mask of righteous indignation. She expected uniformed officers to storm in handcuffs ready. She expected shouting. She expected Tyrell to be dragged out kicking and screaming. Instead, 2 men stepped onto the plane. The first was Marcus Thorne. He was a man in his 50s wearing a Navy Sovereign Air executive suit, his face pale and grim. He held a tablet in his hand, his knuckles white. The second man was not police. He was tall, dressed in a bespoke Italian suit that cost more than Patricia's annual salary. This was David Sterling Tyrrell's attorney. He looked like a shark that had just smelled blood in the water. Patricia was confused, but she recovered quickly. She stepped forward, blocking their path into the cabin. "Sir," she addressed Marcus, assuming he was airport management. "Thank goodness you're here. The passenger is in seat 1A. He has a fraudulent credit card. He has been aggressive and he refused to follow crew instructions. I have Mr. Holloway in seat 2A as a witness." Marcus Thorne didn't even look at her. He didn't acknowledge her existence. He stepped around her as if she were a piece of furniture. "Excuse me?" Patricia said, her voice rising. "Sir, I am the lead flight attendant. I am giving you the report. The suspect is what—" "Be quiet," Marcus said. He didn't shout. He didn't scream. He said it with a quiet, terrifying authority that snapped Patricia's mouth shut instantly. Marcus and David walked straight past the galley into the first-ass cabin. Gregory Holloway was beaming. He had his phone out recording. "Here we go. Justice in action." Marcus stopped at row 1. He looked at Tyrell, who was calmly putting Chloe's coloring book back into her backpack. Marcus bowed his head. It wasn't a nod. It was a bow, a gesture of deep, apologetic submission. "Mr. James," Marcus said, his voice shaking slightly. "On behalf of Richard Sterling and the entire board of Sovereign Air, I am profoundly sorry." The silence in the cabin was absolute. It was heavy, suffocating. Patricia, standing by the door, felt the blood drain from her face. Her knees went weak. She grabbed the bulkhead for support. "Mr. James, the board." Gregory lowered his phone. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "It's an inconvenience," Marcus Tyrrell said, standing up and picking up Chloe. "But I appreciate you meeting us. We have a private jet fueled and waiting on the adjacent tarmac to take you and your daughter to Los Angeles immediately," Marcus continued. "Your luggage is being transferred as we speak. We have catered the flight with your preferred menu." "And the issue with the ticket?" Tyrrell asked, glancing back at Patricia. "There is no issue, sir. Your Centurion card is of course valid. The error was entirely on our end, specifically a failure of personnel to adhere to protocol and basic decency." David Sterling, the lawyer, stepped forward. He handed Tyrrell a document. "I've already drafted the initial complaint, Tyrrell. We can file for unlawful imprisonment and defamation against the airline, but Richard is begging for a settlement meeting before we go to court." "We'll see," Tyrrell said. Trell stepped out into the aisle. He walked toward the door. As he passed row 2, he stopped and looked down at Gregory. Gregory was pale, sweating profusely. He tried to hide his phone. "You mentioned something about riffraff and knowing your place." Tyrrell said, "I think you were right. Some people don't know their place, but I think you're confused about who those people are." Tyre turned to Marcus. "This man, Mr. Holloway, he has been harassing my daughter and me since the terminal. He has been filming a minor without consent. He has been shouting racial slurs disguised as security concerns." Marcus turned his cold eyes onto Gregory. "Is this true?" "Now wait a minute," Gregory stammered. "I was just being a concerned citizen. Patricia told me he was a fraud. I was helping the crew." "Helping the crew," Marcus repeated. He tapped his tablet. "Mr. Holloway, I see your diamond status. Consider it revoked, effective immediately." "You can't do that," Gregory shrieked. "I fly a 100,000 meters a year." "Not with Sovereign, you don't," Marcus said. "And given our alliance partners, I doubt you'll be flying One World or Star Alliance either. You are banned from this aircraft. Gather your things. The airport police are waiting at the bottom of the stairs to discuss the filming of a minor." "Police," Gregory squeaked. "Get off my plane," Marcus ordered. Gregory scrambled up, grabbing his bag, his face a mask of humiliation. He skewered toward the door, passing Tyrrell without making eye contact. Tyrrell walked to the front of the plane. Patricia was pressed against the wall, trembling. She looked small. She looked terrified. "Mr. James," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I was just following procedure. The system flagged. I didn't know." Tyrell looked at her. He didn't yell. He didn't rage. He just looked at her with a profound disappointment. It wasn't the system, Patricia. The system just reads numbers. You read a person and you decided based on nothing but your own bias that I didn't belong. "Please," she begged. "I have a pension. I have 5 years left." Tyrell turned to Marcus. "I don't want to fly with her ever again, and I don't think anyone else should have to either." Marcus nodded. He turned to Patricia. "Hand over your badge, Patricia. You are relieved of duty. You are to deplane immediately and wait in the crew lounge for HR. Do not speak to the press. Do not speak to anyone." "Fired," she gasped. "You're firing me right here. You grounded a transatlantic flight and exposed the airline to a multi-million-dollar lawsuit because you couldn't be polite to a paying customer," Marcus said. "You're lucky we aren't suing you for the fuel costs." Patricia's hands shook as she unpinned her wings, the golden wings she had worn for 20 years. She placed them in Marcus's hand. She looked at Tyrell one last time, pleading silently for mercy. Tyrell just adjusted Chloe on his hip. "Come on, baby. Let's go to the other plane." He walked out the door, down the stairs, and into the waiting SUV, leaving the wreckage of 2 egos burning in his wake. The cabin of the Sovereign Air 77 was silent for a long time after Tyr left. The air conditioning hummed. The remaining passengers looked at each other stunned. The young flight attendant, the one who had tried to help Tyr earlier, stood at the front of the cabin. He looked at Marcus, who was still standing in the galley. "What do we do now, sir?" the young attendant asked. Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. "We have to get this plane to L.A. You're the senior crew member now, son. Can you handle the service?" Yes, sir. But we're down a purser. I'll have a replacement crew member flown in, but for now, just give everyone free drinks. Give them whatever they want. We need to do damage control." Marcus picked up the PA system. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Marcus Thorne, Director of Operations. I want to apologize for this diversion. We had a significant failure in our customer service protocols today. The gentleman who just left us was a valued customer who was treated poorly. The situation has been rectified. We will be refueling and departing for Los Angeles in 40 minutes. Everyone on board will receive a voucher for a free round-trip flight anywhere Sovereign flies as compensation for this delay." A cheer went up from the economy cabin in the back, where people had no idea what had actually happened. But in first class, nobody cheered. They just sat in uncomfortable silence, processing the brutality of what they had just witnessed. Meanwhile, inside the private terminal, Tyrell sat in a plush leather chair sipping an espresso. Chloe was happily eating a chocolate cross that a concierge had sprinted to get for her. David Sterling sat across from him, tapping on his laptop. "Okay, Tyrell," David said. "I have Richard on the phone." David put the phone on speaker. "Tyrell." Richard Sterling's voice came through, sounding exhausted. "I am watching the footage from the gate in New York. I am sick, physically sick. I saw how she blocked you. I saw Holloway." "It's a culture problem, Richard," Tyrell said calmly. "It's not just one bad apple." Patricia felt comfortable doing that because she thought the system would back her up. She thought you would back her up against a guy in a hoodie. I know. We're going to overhaul the training. Sensitivity training bias workshops the works. And I'm making a public statement within the hour." And Holloway Tyrell asked. "Banned for life," Richard said instantly. "We've already flagged his profile, and I took the liberty of calling a friend at the rental car agency he uses. He's going to have a hard time getting around L.A. if he ever gets there." Tyrell took a sip of his coffee. He felt the tension leaving his shoulders. "I appreciate that, Richard. Tyrell, is there anything else? Name it." Tyrell looked at Chloe. She was smiling chocolate on her nose. She was happy. She was safe. "Yeah, there is one thing," Tyrell said. The young flight attendant, the guy with the dark hair. He tried to help. He was scared of Patricia, but he tried. "Promote him. Done. Richard said, "Consider it done." And Richard, "Yes. Next time I fly, make sure the crew knows that hoodies are comfortable," Tyrell said dryly. "I'll put it in the handbook," Richard promised. The door to the lounge opened. A pilot in a pristine uniform walked in. "Mr. James, your Gulfstream is ready. We can depart whenever you are." Tyrell stood up. He picked up his bag. "Let's go home, Chloe. Is the mean lady coming?" Chloe asked, looking around. "No, sweetie," Tyrell smiled. "The mean lady isn't going anywhere for a very long time." As they walked toward the tarmac, Tyrell's phone buzzed. It was a notification from Twitter X. A video was trending. First-class racism sovereign air. It was the video Gregory had taken, but it wasn't having the effect Gregory intended. The caption Gregory had written was, "Thug gets kicked off plane justice." But the comments were different. "Dude, that's Tyrell James. He invented the security software your phone uses. Did this idiot just film himself harassing a billionaire sovereign heir is about to get sued into oblivion? Who is the loud guy in the suit? Let's find him." Tyrell scrolled down. The internet detectives had already found Gregory. His LinkedIn was being bombarded. His employer was tagged. Karma wasn't just coming for Gregory. It had already arrived, and it was trending globally. Tyre turned off his phone. He didn't need to watch. He knew how this movie ended. He walked up the stairs to the private jet, holding his daughter's hand, leaving the noise, the judgment, and the chaos far below him. But the story wasn't quite over. Because while Tyrell was flying high down on the ground, Patricia and Gregory were about to face the reality of a world where actions have consequences. And sometimes, the nobody in seat 1A is the most powerful person in the room. While Tyrell James was cruising at 45,000 feet in the quiet luxury of a Gulfstream G650, sipping sparkling water and watching Frozen with his daughter, the world on the ground was imploding for the two people who had tried to ruin his day. The Philadelphia International Airport terminal was a cold, sterile place for Gregory Holloway. After being escorted off the plane by airport police who had politely but firmly deleted the video of the minor from his phone, though they couldn't delete the copy he had foolishly uploaded to the cloud, which was now his undoing, Gregory found himself standing at the Hart's rental car counter. He was sweating. His tie was loosened. His beige suit rumpled. He tapped his fingers on the laminate counter. "I need a car. Luxury sedan one way to Los Angeles." Gregory barked at the Claire. "And hurry! I've been treated like a criminal by Sovereign Air and I have a meeting to make." The Clear, a young man named Leo, typed into the computer. He frowned. He typed again. "I'm sorry, Mr. Holloway," Leo said. "The system won't let me process the reservation." "What do you mean?" Gregory snapped. "I'm a Gold Plus member. Override it. It says here, do not rent, security risk." Leo looked up confused. "Have you had an incident with a vehicle recently?" "No," Gregory shouted. "This is that airline. They blacklisted me. They can't blacklist me from a rental car company." "Actually, sir," Leo said, pointing to the fine print on the laminated sign on the counter, "Sovereign Air and our parent company share a security database for high-risk travelers. If you're flagged on the no-fly list for aggression, our policy is to deny rental. We can't trust you with a $60,000 vehicle." Gregory's face turned purple. "This is illegal. I'm calling my lawyer." He pulled out his phone. But before he could dial his lawyer, an incoming call took over the screen. The caller ID read Managing Partner Davis and Keogh. Gregory froze. This was his boss, the head of the investment firm where Gregory was a senior VP. He answered, forcing a jovial tone. "Robert, hi. Listen, I'm going to be a little late to the LA summit. You won't believe the shut up, Gregory." Robert's voice was ice. It wasn't the voice of a colleague. It was the voice of an executioner. "Robert, I just got off the phone with Richard Sterling." Robert said, "Do you know who Richard Sterling is? Gregory, the CEO of Sovereign Air." "Yeah, his staff. He's also one of our firm's biggest liquidity providers." Robert cut in. We manage $2 billion of Sovereign's pension fund, or rather we did. Richard just threatened to pull the entire portfolio because one of our vice presidents was recorded racially profiling his friend and harassing a 4-year-old girl. Gregory felt the floor drop out from under him. Robert let me explain. The guy was wearing a hoodie. He looked like Terrell James. Robert screamed. He's a tech mogul, you idiot. We have a buy position on his company. And now, thanks to you, Forbes is calling our PR department asking if Davis & Co. supports discrimination. I didn't know. You represent this firm, Gregory. And you just torched our reputation in 4K resolution. The video is everywhere. VP of Davis & Co. harasses Dad. You're trending on Twitter. We're getting death threats at the reception desk. I can fix this, Gregory stammered. I'll issue an apology. You don't work here anymore. Gregory Robert said, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. Your access to the building is revoked. Your company email is deactivated. We are invoking the morality clause in your contract. You are fired for cause. Do not go to the office. We will mail you your personal effects. You can't do this. I bring in millions. You just cost us billions. Goodbye, Gregory. The line went dead. Gregory stood in the middle of the rental car lobby. People were walking past him, dragging their suitcases, living their lives. But Gregory was frozen. In the span of 3 hours, he had lost his flight, his status, his rental car, and his career. He looked at his phone. A notification from LinkedIn popped up. Your profile has been flagged for violation of community standards regarding hate speech. The digital walls were closing in. He sat down on his suitcase and put his head in his hands. He was stuck in Philadelphia. He had no job. He had no way home. And everyone who walked by him seemed to be looking at him with the same disgust he had shown Terrell. Meanwhile, in the Sovereign Aircrew Lounge, the air was even colder. Patricia Evans was sitting in a plastic chair in a small, windowless conference room. She had been stripped of her ID badge. Her uniform jacket with its gold stripes was folded on the table, a pile of fabric that used to mean authority. Across from her sat the regional HR director, a woman named Sheila, and Sovereign's legal counsel, a sharp-eyed man named Mr. Henderson. I don't understand. Patricia wept, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. I was protecting the flight. I thought the card was fake. You see those fake cards on TikTok all the time, Patricia Sheila said softly but without warmth. You bypassed 3 verification steps. The scanner said invitation only. That is the highest clearance code in our system. It overrides everything. Why did you ignore it? I thought the machine was broken. And the passport, mister, Henderson interjected. You inspected a valid U.S. passport. You saw the name Terrell James. A simple Google search would have told you he is a cybersecurity contractor for the Department of Defense, but you didn't check. You assumed he was wearing a hoodie, Patricia whispered. He didn't look like a first-class passenger. And that, Sheila said, is exactly why we are terminating you. Gross misconduct, violation of civil rights, violation of company values. Terminating, Patricia gasped. I have 20 years. What about my pension? I'm 5 years away from full retirement. You are being terminated for cause, Patricia, Mr. Henderson said, sliding a paper across the table. Under the terms of your union contract, gross misconduct involving legal liability forfeits the company match on your pension plan. You leave with what you contributed, nothing more. You're stealing my retirement, Patricia shrieked, standing up. You cost the airline a diversion? Mr. Henderson said, his voice hard. Do you know how much it costs to land a 777 refuel? It pay the landing fees and compensate 300 passengers, roughly $200,000. We are debating whether to sue you personally for damages. Patricia sank back into the chair. Sue me. Mr. James has indicated he will not sue the airline if we demonstrate a total cleansing of the toxic element, Sheila explained. That means you. If you fight this termination, if you go to the press, if you try to spin this, we will unleash our legal team on you for the cost of that diversion. You will lose your house, Patricia. The room was silent. The hum of the vending machine outside was the only sound. Sign the separation agreement, Sheila said. "Take your contributions and go." Patricia looked at the paper. Her hands shook uncontrollably. She signed. 20 minutes later, Patricia walked out of the airport. She was wearing a spare Sovereign Air t-shirt they had given her because she wasn't allowed to feel even uniform. She carried her personal items in a plastic trash bag. She stood on the curb waiting for a bus. She watched a Sovereign airplane take off in the distance, soaring into the clouds. She had spent her life on those planes. She had believed she was the queen of the cabin. Now she was just another person on the curb watching the world fly by without her. 3 weeks later, the studio lights of the Morning Exchange, the country's highest-rated morning show, were bright and warm. The host, Samantha Reed, sat in a comfortable armchair, leaning forward with an expression of intense interest. Across from her sat Tyrell James. He looked different than he had at the airport. He wore a tailored navy suit, relaxed but authoritative. He looked every inch the tech billionaire he was, but his eyes were still kind. "So, Tyrell," Samantha said, addressing the camera, and then turning back to him. "The video of the incident has been viewed 40 million times. We see you being blocked. We see Mr. Holloway, who has since been fired from his firm, harassing you. What was going through your mind in that moment?" Tyrell took a breath. "Honestly, Samantha, I was thinking about my daughter. Chloe is 4. She doesn't see status. She doesn't see race. She just sees her dad. And in that moment, she saw her dad being treated like a criminal. I couldn't let that be her memory of flying. You made a phone call that became legendary." Samantha smiled. "You called the CEO and turned the plane around. Most people can't do that." "No, they can't." Tyrell agreed. "And that's the problem. If I were just Tyrell James, the guy from the block, I would have been arrested. I would have been dragged off that plane. I only survived that encounter because I had leverage. But dignity shouldn't require $1 billion in the bank." The audience applauded. Tyre nodded in acknowledgement. That is why Tyrell continued. "I'm announcing something today. I've been working with Richard Sterling at Sovereign Air. We aren't just doing sensitivity training. That's a Band-Aid." Tyrell looked directly into the camera. "We are launching the Chloe Protocol. It's a new software integration for airlines designed by my company, James Systems, and provided free of charge. It removes the bias from the boarding process. It anonymizes passenger data for the crew until the moment of service. No more judging a book by its cover. If the scanner is green, the passenger boards. Period. If a crew member overrides it without a security clearance from the ground, the plane doesn't move." Wow. Samantha said, "You're automating the fairness. Technology created the divide." Tyrell said, "Technology can help fix it, and Sovereign Air has agreed to be the first to implement it. They are also donating $5 million to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund as part of our settlement." "And what about the crew?" Samantha asked. "We heard rumors about a young flight attendant." Tyrell smiled a genuine warm smile. "David, the young man who tried to help. He's no longer a flight attendant. He's been promoted to the Director of Customer Experience Training at Sovereign. He's going to teach the next generation that service means service for everyone." The screen behind them changed to show a photo. It was Tyrell and Chloe standing on a beach in Malibu. Chloe was beaming, holding a seashell. Tyrell looked at Peace. "And how is Chloe?" "She's great," Tyrell said. "She asked me if we can take the big bus in the sky again. I told her yes, but this time we're wearing pajamas. And if anyone has a problem with it, I've got plenty of battery left on my phone." The audience laughed and cheered as the segment faded to black. Tyrell James didn't just cancel a flight. He canceled a mindset. He proved that while money is power, character is the ultimate currency. Gregory Holloway and Patricia Evans learned the hard way that when you judge someone by their appearance, you might just be looking at the architect of your own destruction. The skies are a little friendlier now, not because of the luxury seats, but because one father refused to sit down and shut up. He stood tall not just for himself, but for every father who just wants to get his little girl home safely. Sometimes the most expensive ticket you can buy is the one that takes you on a journey to humility. And for Sovereign Air Flight 402 was the most expensive and valuable lesson they ever learned. What a ride. Tyre turned a nightmare into a revolution. He showed us that real power isn't about making noise, it's about making change. Gregory and Patricia lost everything because of their pride, but Terrell gained a legacy. Did this story get your heart racing? Have you ever been judged unfairly while traveling? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one. If you enjoyed Tyrell's victory, smash that like button. Share this video with someone who needs a win today. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a story of karma, justice, and truth. Thanks for watching and fly.